legally speaking, the U.S. has a responsibility to defend Taiwan, right?
美国人一般都坚决反对。
I think democracy is worth defending.
Oh, super low, super low. I'm sorry, guys.
专门去学台语是3年啊。
大家好，假爸爸 Welcome back to the KOSA HOSO on Nagame. A couple days ago, the Secretary of the State, Blinken, said that Taiwan issue is not an internal matter, but an international issue. We are very curious about how would American citizens see this issue. And do they agree on sending troops to Taiwan if anything urgent happens? Let's hit the street and ask some American fellows in Taipei about this issue. Blinken said that it's not an internal affair of China about the Taiwan issue. And what do you think about it?
Quite obviously, it's not an internal issue. But right now, the U.S. policy is to sort of adhere to the one China policy. But it's also just acknowledging the reality that everybody finds a way to live with. So yeah, I agree. It's an obvious reality. It wouldn't be an internal issue if the PRC invaded.
Yeah, I knew about it. Blinken's comments are in line with Biden's earlier comments to 60 Minutes last year when he said that in case of unprovoked attack, that U.S. troops would defend Taiwan.
我没有听这一篇新闻，但是我觉得说，一般的美国人都是支持一个国家有权利判断他们自己是属于哪一个国家。你看台湾的人，大部分的不想要被中国控制，中国逼着台湾一定要属于中国的话，美国人一般都坚决反对。
Ultimately, the U.S. should defend Taiwan if an invasion happens. And I think democracy is worth defending, you know? And I think national sovereignty is worth defending and aiding. It would be bad if Taiwanese democracy were extinguished.
Legally speaking, the U.S. has a responsibility to defend Taiwan, right? The Taiwan Relations Act and all those things still apply. Obviously, I would be against doing anything that would automatically start a war. But in the case of, you know, Xi Jinping invading, yeah, obviously, U.S. should definitely keep troops here. I think there's no way for Taiwan, if the U.S. is involved in Taiwan, I don't think there's a way for it to just be Taiwan, right? Like, you have troops in Japan. You have, obviously, you would have the U.S. Navy coming in. You have U.S. allies like the Philippines, where a lot of naval things are stationed right now, right? So you have all these other sort of actors involved. So it would definitely go beyond just this island, right? It would be huge. I mean, I don't want that. Let the record show. But it's international security.
我会支持，我看大部分的美国人都会支持，因为如果我们是不敌对这些非民主的国家的政策的话，我们接下去我们的自由就会减少。
What is the percentage you think of like other Americans share the sense of?
Oh, super low, super low. I'm sorry, guys. I think the U.S. population is very sick of the U.S. Army goes everywhere to fix the world's problem. After Iraq and Afghanistan, you just have a lot of people who are very focused on domestic issues first and foremost, and they do not want to spend all the money that it would cost to, you know, defend Taiwan and send the Navy and send the Air Force and send the Army over here. You know, and I think another thing is a lot of people support this issue, but I hope it's not because of anti-China. Taiwan should not be invaded because Taiwan doesn't deserve to be invaded, right? It's a democracy. It's an island full of 23 million people. And I think right now a lot of people in Congress and our government view Taiwan as an anti-China thing instead of it just being a Taiwan thing.
What about Ukraine? Is it Ukraine a different case for you? What do you think about it?
I think it's different. Like legally speaking, or, you know, like the U.S. did not have an obligation to send troops to Ukraine, but the U.S. has sent more military aid than any other country in the world to Ukraine. So clearly the U.S. is supporting Ukraine, even though the troops aren't there right now, right? Versus Taiwan, we have the TRA, right? We have an act by Congress that shows that the U.S. has to defend Taiwan, and also you have the simple fact that Taiwan is more of an ally to the U.S., even an unofficial ally, than Ukraine is to the U.S., right? And so I think those are two different situations, you know, as to why you would send troops here but not over there.
I think it's a little bit different in that American troops are in some sense already here, right? And so I think the U.S. is doing what it can without provoking a nuclear war. Yeah, I would say, you know, with the status of forces as it was, that was what it could do. And I think the U.S. should do what it can to defend democracies. There are differences in what it can and can't do based on the specifics.
乌克兰不是属于 NATO 的国家，所以他们是没有受到美国的保护。但是台湾是，就是刚才说的，由于日本的因素，还有由于有一台法律也是支持台湾的，说 Taiwan Relations Act， 对，所以我觉得台湾的情况跟乌克兰不一样。 大国想要欺负小国，所以这方面的是接近。但是台湾跟美国之间有一个法律的保护，乌克兰没有这方面的保护。
To be honest, as an American citizen, do you see China as an enemy?
I don't think of China as an enemy, just because there's too many linkages between the two countries, right? We have too many ties, both economic and otherwise. I also think that when you say a country's an enemy, then you automatically are justifying a war against them. And there's no need for the US to go to war with China if there's no invasion of Taiwan, right? Like the status quo can be maintained like it has been for the past 50 years. And there hasn't been a war. We don't view China as an enemy. Yeah. And so I think it's unfortunate that there's a lot of Americans and there's a lot of people in China who view America as an enemy, right? And that we're seeing a lot of people inside the Department of Defense, and we're seeing a lot of people inside the Republican Party and also the Democrat Party, start talking as though war is inevitable. China's a country. It's obviously a competitor in some ways, but it can also be a partner in other ways. And I think enemy is such a strong word, right?
I don't think they should be. I don't think anybody involved in this should be. I think, there's the possibility for peace across the strait. I think there's a possibility for, peaceful coexistence between all three. I mean, technically, that's the state we're in right now. And I think we should strive for that. The current status as of 3 years ago and slowly returning to that is people traveling between all three places pretty interchangeably. But I do want to emphasize the degree to which the United States should be trying to peacefully protect the status quo.
Yeah, certainly. 中国是绝对是美国的敌人。
Why?
因为中国的制度，中国是不但想要欺负很多国家，他们也是在推广这个就是非自由的经济的模式，跟美国没有办法去一起生存。
You think it's possible for the United States and China to cooperate, even in this situation? Scenario?
The Taiwan-China issue has always existed, right?
Yeah.
For the past 50 years.
Yeah.
And yet there hasn't been a war, right? The US and China have managed to cooperate despite Taiwan and the US support for Taiwan, right? Even if you look at something like the Soviet Union back in the 80s, right? That was an existential enemy towards the US, but they still have to work together on some issues, right? And we have issues like climate change or all these other global questions. The US has to work with China on that. There's no way around it.
可以问一个比较就是额外的问题，说为什么你的中文这么好吗？
其实我真罕你讲啊，我真一半还要讲啊。不过有这款物件，可能是讲中国话较认得。
哇，你台语嘛会通哦？
台语嘛会通。
哇，安尼是住在台湾几偌年啊？
我住在这边差不多9年，不过我是专门去学台语是3年啊。中国话差不多6年啊。
那你觉得学中文跟学台语有什么差别吗？
台语比较复杂，因为台语有变音规则，就是这个很难解释，就是一般的人都可以教北京话，但是只有专业的人才可以教台语。
I'm actually very surprised that all the interviewees we talked to today supported to send troops to Taiwan. Personally, I really appreciate it as a Taiwanese, but I didn't know even a direct war with China would still make all these American felons say that they will agree on sending troops to Taiwan. Protecting democracy is absolutely very important for all of us, for sure. And we would love to keep our status quo and keep the way how we live in Taipei, Taiwan. But no one wants a war from happening, right? Thank you for watching today's video. If you like today's content, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this issue.